Hey Chris, this is Jeff, and this is Steve, my partner, and we thought it would be easier to do a video so that we could explain exactly what it is that we're looking to have happen with the filters. So Steve, if you want to get started on...
Okay, this is our filter. I'll take it apart in a second, but it's pretty easy to understand. I put it in my mouth, and I breathe through it normally. Then I also have a nose clip, so all I'm doing is bringing in the air just through my mouth and inhaling and exhaling through this device. Now inside of it we have the filter that we're trying to purchase from you, and that's where we have several questions on it. One of the questions we have is, when you look at the normal white filter that you normally see for N95, and the thing that we're a little concerned about, what I'm just trying to figure out is, when you go through it, there's three distinct layers. Maybe you want to get close. There's the outside layer, there's a filter layer, a filter type of fabric, and then a thicker layer inside. And when I've talked to people in China of what this thing was, they said that the outside layer was a 50 ounce or 50 grams per square meter spun bound. Then there's a 50 gram filter fabric inside, and then they have a spun lace in 85. Now I'm assuming that this 85 is actually kind of a molding process, so I don't even know if that's even part of the whole equation, but there's three distinct layers, and we're looking at yours, and you really have kind of two layers. I think you have the spun bound as well as the filter fabric, but you have no other layer, which still might be fine, but we're trying to figure out if that's really what would get us that N95 rating. Now, one thing that I had a little suggestion or a problem with is that you had the spun bound on the outside, but with the filter fabric it's very fibrous, and that you can almost pull it off. What I'm concerned is if that's inside the mask, is as you breathe, that fibers might get into your lungs. So what I'm assuming is that we just probably turn that filter around and have the spun inside and have the fibrous part on the outside where it would not get into our lungs. So I just want to make sure if maybe you've seen that before with this type of fabric. So that's one of the questions we have, is if do we need to have all three layers, or really what you've given us is these two layers, is that all we need for N95? And then what we have to worry about is that fibrous material, if that's harmful for a person to breathe in and out. Then also you sent Jeff two different fabrics. Now you sent one that was a little thicker, and then you said that there's one called a 195, I believe.
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the first one that was sent was actually thicker than the second one, and the second one you said you were under the impression that that one was something that you believed would pass the N95 certification. And I know you don't know that for sure, but you were just trying to put your best guess out, which I appreciate. So our question is, does the thickness matter? Or are we reading something into it that isn't even there? It seems like one is thicker than the other, but once we send it in for testing, it's going to cost us a considerable amount of money, so we want to make sure we're getting as many details cleaned up before we send the filter in. So if you could help us understand if thickness is an issue with the filters, that would be great.
And the reason why is we actually like the thicker one better than the thinner one, because once you put the thinner one in, it's very flimsy in the device and doesn't hold up very well. So the thicker one actually works better for us. So, I'd rather go a little bit thicker if we could. Another thing we could do is, when you have these fabrics, if somehow we do need to have those three fabrics I told you about, there's actually three distinct fabrics. Can you sell them to us this way, or can you stitch on the outside something similar to this where they're all together? Now again, like this. Now again, if this fabric you gave us will suffice, we're happy with this. But if somehow we need to have the three fabrics, and now that you see the device, these three fabrics now that we need to have them sewn together, because obviously we're not going to give the customer three fabrics to fumble around and put in the thing. We need to have them fastened together. Either a nice stitch on the outside like this, or even just a simple stitch so that all three of them just stay together, so all you're doing is dealing with one piece.
And I think the only other thing that we had a question about was if we get to the right filter and we start production, whether or not we need to have a die cut. But if I remember back, we talked several months ago, and I believe you said that you may have a press that just runs those things at a standard size, which you had given me in an email. So we'd be interested in a little bit about how it would run, how a production run would happen if we were to meet the size specifications that you put in your last email.
As you can see, I think you spelled out as like 2.5 inches by 4 inches, which is almost what this size is. We may have to make this device bigger. We can make this device any size we really want. And obviously, if it's cheaper to use your filter, your die-cut filter, if it's cheaper that way, we'll make this device fit that. But if we're only saving maybe $200 on a new die and we have to buy a new die, if that's all we're saving, then we may want to just do our own size and go from there. And that's the reason why we asked that question. If we're saving money using yours, big money, that's great. But if it's only like $200-300, we probably end up buying our own die for you to cut them for us. Mm-hmm. Then the only other question I had too is that would there ever a chance that do you do printing on the fabric itself in case we wanted to put N95 or a logo on here? Do you do a print on those too? And that's not a biggie thing. The biggest thing is we need to get this filter figured out for the N95 rating on this thing, because we feel that once you get the filter in our device and with the nose plug, we're going to be pretty much close to what you're getting with this. And that's what we're doing. We need to get that rating. So the filter is very, very, very important. But then again, it's got to be health-wise too, so you're not breathing in bad fat fibers. So I think you understand that. Why don't you push pause?